Hello, listener. Who are you? Remember who you really are, who you were before you came to Earth, before you incarnated here. For you had to forget. You had to forget simply who you really are. For you are not this body. You are not the ears you're using to listen to this podcast. You are not the mind that has those voices in your head. From some it's voices, but normally it's that one voice. It tells you who you are. It tells you what to think. It tells you that you're separate from others. That's what it goes down to. That separation that gets created through the mind. For the mind cannot survive. It cannot survive when you know who you are. It can try. I'm sure by now you're wondering, what does he mean by who I am? Who are you beyond thought? When the mind is calm, when the mind is no longer telling you who you are and who you're not. It's no longer judging, commenting, speculating, feeling resentful, guilt, anger. For realize the mind is a survival tool that's helped humanity reproduce and evolve for so many years. It's what's led to our survival. And the mind is so very useful. But what happens? What happens when the mind takes the driver's seat? Takes the driver's seat by pushing you out that front door, that driver's side door, takes your seatbelt off, throws you out while you're driving. And the mind takes over, starts taking you down a path that maybe you weren't trying to go, that maybe wasn't for you. This is what spiritual teacher named Eckhart Tolle calls unconsciousness. And further than that is deep unconsciousness. And all that means is identifying with every single thought and thinking that's who you are and what you think. If these concepts are new to you, I simply want to start with this. I've seen unconsciousness. I've lived it. And even worse, deep unconsciousness. You could also consider this living in survival mode. Living, but not truly living. For this is not life. Constantly projecting your internal world out to the outer world. That's unconsciousness. Not having accepted certain parts of yourself and forgiven yourself for the many mistakes you've made in life and putting that out to the world. I want to start on this first episode with simply sharing my truth. For this podcast, I've decided to call it the Earth Incarnation Podcast, simply because incarnation and Earth is where we are. We're here on Earth. Regardless of religious beliefs or anything else. To me, all that means is you're living here now on Earth. So let's begin. Hi, listener. For you are consciousness. So this is simply one consciousness speaking to another. I want to share with you my story. Not because for any other reason than me seeing it as an opportunity to help those that are possibly in unconsciousness like I was. For if in the end you don't remember who I am, I hope you take the message and the lessons I've learned in life with you. For learning from others helps you a lot. Helps you, let's just say, avoid making the same mistakes others did. I make this podcast and I dedicate it to helping everyone. For who I am speaking to is me. Because I am you, the listener. And you are me. For we are all truly one. There's nothing that truly separates us. Because everyone and everything goes back to source. Other names for source in the world include God, Allah, Brahman, Yahweh, or even more simply, I am that I am. So let's begin. My name is Eric, and I was first born in 1998 on Earth's calendar years. from what I now understand, my soul chose a beautiful family that had their many struggles that they had to go through, and generational curses that ran rampant in the family, such as alcoholism, addiction, maybe not having the proper boundaries between family members and the world itself, resentment, anger. This family I was born into, there was my mom and brother and my dad. Around 3 years old, I believe, 3 or 4, my parents divorced. And the very little I remember from that age is constantly trying to be the mediator between the two, trying to have them talk to each other, for both had taken the path of, and for my dad, I believe it was resentment, and for my mom, I believe possibly also resentment. But because you see, both weren't perfect people, as no one really is. After this happened, I grew up without having my father around too much. See him every now and then on the weekends, maybe from about 3 or 4 years old, maybe up until 10. I don't remember exactly, but I wouldn't see him that much, right? And there came a point where my mom got married to another person, and this person became my stepfather, and we were welcomed into his home, where I started to have some stability from the weird world of shared custody, where one parent has us, me and my brother, for the majority of the time, and we'd see the other parent through scheduling or on the weekends of some sort. And when we had this stability, I look back and I truly feel like back then I knew my mission on earth, because right away I had made a YouTube account and posted videos. And the funny thing is, I remember on my YouTube channel, I had titled it something like Jesus Christ is the Lord. At such a young age, I was already spreading the word of God. And I look back and it's like I always knew my mission on earth was to simply honor God. But in life, things don't always just go in a, let's just say, a straight road. We have our curves, we have our bumps, we have our potholes, our obstacles that take us off our path. And this obstacle for me was when I was entering puberty. It was around 13, 14 years old, and I was entering puberty around the time that my mom and my stepfather had gotten divorced. They got divorced, and my mom, brother, and I, we ended up moving to Mexico, where my parents are originally from, and living with her sister. And during this time, I started going to school in Mexico. And while I was living there, my mom had to come back to the US and work. She was going to work and have a place ready for us for when we joined her. So I was now being taken care of by my aunts. There came a point where, not understanding what was going on within me during puberty, there was a family member of mine who, without knowing that person's thoughts or intention, they saw me as I was going through this, natural transition of now having these feelings within and wanting to express them and all of this. This family member then proceeds to groom me. And if you're not familiar with this term, I would simply put it as taking another human who's younger and involving them in acts or sexual acts that they're simply not ready for, or not understand, or know what they're doing, or even are able to consent. But I was 14 and basically went along with it. After this point, I came back to the US, no longer around this family member, but I was no longer the same. I now felt weird about myself, about how I thought, about the internal sensations I would feel. And to put it simply, this experience had changed my sexuality. And as I look back and observe my actions and feelings and just all of it, I get to really examine the psychological effects of having someone basically take advantage of you during that time where you don't know what's going on within you. And I came back to a school where I didn't know many people and proceeded to make friendships where I would belittle myself, put myself down in the hopes of being accepted by others around me, by maybe being what others wanted me to be, but not truly understanding who I am. I would compare it maybe to a little bit of a, maybe an amnesia of some sort. Picture someone getting a concussion. Maybe they don't remember how they got in that accident. But during this time, I would describe me being in a maybe unconscious/conscious state of not fully being taken over by the mind, but not having the mental tools yet to heal from what happened before. Well, I then go on to make many mistakes, like losing myself in generational problems that have gone on within my own family, like at times drinking too much around people, other times feeling resentful of others for the simple fact of wondering why them, why not me, and knowing something within me was different from others, not fully understanding why. And this part of me I never wanted to share with anyone, for it felt like, picture your life as a library, and every book is maybe, let's say, an aspect of you. And this book, I basically wanted to keep it in this secret chest with a lock and key. And knowing I never wanted this book to be opened, I grabbed that key and threw it in the ocean. And that's how I lived my life after that, for many years. Never telling my mom about this experience, friends, no one. My resentment knew no bounds. My lower emotions knew no bounds. I resented my own father for feeling like he hadn't truly been there for us, for we struggled, having a single mother, sometimes working 2 jobs, and me going to school with people I didn't really know, who didn't really know me, never feeling like I fit in anywhere. I grow resentful with others around me. In one case, a friend of mine who I love, I resented that he was able to make friends so easily, and just always wondered why not me. I now understand why, because I always felt something was wrong with me. So just having that feeling, others could see it, feel it. And a funny analogy I like to use is one day my mom told me to take out the trash, and let's just say that trash was this particular trauma, and I was just carrying it around like I forgot to throw it in the bin. Just carrying it around with me everywhere I went. And people smelling this trash I'm holding and even looking at it and saying, oh, I don't know if I want to be around this guy. And me just not knowing I had it on me, right? It's like when you get out of the bathroom and you have a piece of toilet paper stuck to your foot, right? But anyway, well, there comes a point where, let's say 18, 19, just, you graduate high school and, you make your way to college and start going out into the real world, right? Because high school itself is very, very sheltered from the world, right? It's a time where each individual student is just going about their day and trying to catch up with homework, classes, social lives, all of it, right? But it's within a closed environment. I guess that's all I mean. So I make it out of there, and I know I need to put some work into myself. Just listening to self-development books, self-help books, because I had made a goal, and that goal was to date, was to meet the girl for me. And around this time, I had a group of friends that no matter how bad I got, no matter how my lower self engaged in everyday life with them and others around me, they stayed my friend. And what ended up happening is I had started attaching myself to whatever I could. Ideas, beliefs, people. Something I look back now and it was of the egoic self, right? It would grab on to these different aspects of me to feel like that's who I am. And I've put in the work. I met the girl, put in the work to be able to ask this girl out, something I wasn't able to do throughout high school and after. Not even express how I felt within the dating world, keeping that to myself. So I meet the girl, and years later I know it was meant to happen. We met in a class in college, and the funny thing is, it was an anthropology class. One where, let's say, religion and anthropology don't really go together. And around this time, I had questioned a lot of things in my life, searching, trying to remember who I am, trying to remember my mission on earth. And I had left my religion, the religion of Christianity. I left it, left all of it, including God. There were multiple reasons, but it boiled down to just no longer believing in any of it. Became an atheist. My certainty was that there is no God. Based off what I had learned, I found reasons against those and found a way for me to feel more identified with not believing in God. So we meet in anthropology, and there I was, not even really knowing what the class was about, but I didn't want to take biology, so I took anthropology. Anyway, I meet the girl. She sits right in the front, and I was sitting in the back. That day, I just decided to move. I moved to the front, next to her, invite her out to study. But being honest, was more just trying to get to know her. I liked her, and why not try? We end up getting together as boyfriend and girlfriend, and it was the first time I started to feel better about myself, about my own sexuality. For she unknowingly helped me heal from the trauma that is being affected by events that happened when I was 14. Events that I didn't ask for at the time, didn't understand what I was engaging in. Anyway, I heal. Through being with her, I'm able to stop the approach that the person that groomed me when I was younger tried again when I was older. And I had the strength and certainty that I no longer wanted any part of it. I didn't want to be involved in any way, mentally, emotionally, physically, with that person in any other way than a normal family member relationship. But time goes on, and not having the guidance of my father was a factor in not speaking about my emotions, having a mother that was always around, and brother, because we all lived in one room together due to financial struggles. So I go on and I date this girl, but having all these aspects of me that simply weren't healthy, like being prone to alcoholism, not controlling myself when I drink, not knowing how to manage any of my emotions, not knowing how to mentally take care of myself. And to me now, the most important is the spiritual aspect of myself. I had completely dissolved it out of my life. So with time, my resentment for people in my life kept me in a lower vibration. And all that means is lower states of awareness. I would constantly put myself down and put others down, as it so often goes. I would overlook my own feelings and not stand up for myself. And this led to the girl that I love at the time wanting to stand up for me and my feelings and emotions. And when I didn't value myself anymore, she wanted to be there for me. And there was one time where her intention of standing up for me and my inability to simply know who I am clashed with the friends I had made, the friends that were there for me when I wasn't there for myself, when I didn't love myself after being changed through what happened when I was 14. And now some of the people that meant so much to me were no longer in my life. And I tried to move on, tried to get through it, find a way. But there was this part of me that just wasn't normal and caused me to engage in a situation that would ruin my relationship. I was now engaged to this woman that I met in anthropology and helped me heal from the changes that happened when your sexuality gets corrupted. Because I didn't think like the way I did before, and I didn't know how bad it was, and I did something that I'll forever regret. And because of what I did, I knew that the girl that I was now engaged to would absolutely leave me. She would leave me, and everything we built over the years would just crumble to the ground, like a building getting demolished. All of it would be gone, and I didn't want that to happen. I already no longer had people in my life that I would have wanted to. I didn't want to also lose her because of my unconscious actions. So I did something that now I would use the analogy of making a deal with the devil. But what is the devil? The devil is simply your lower self, the negative aspect of yourself, the darkness that is within you, and more simply the ego, your ego. My mind found some way to justify what I had done, to rationalize it, and put the blame of what I did on her for being the cause of my separation with these other people in my life. And that's when I went into deep unconsciousness. Every thought, every feeling I had, I was no longer in control. The mind was. The ego. It was driving unsafely 100 miles an hour in maybe a 40 miles an hour road. I married the girl I love. Already not fully being there, being in this deep unconsciousness, not being there for her. And since I was going through this deep unconsciousness, another name I would have for it is the mental hell. For that is the only hell that truly exists in the mind. All of it, mental hell. One where you're not happy because of who you know you became. And the mind now was taking over, justifying what I had done and blaming my wife, resenting her and not treating her good. And I basically put her through the hell that I was going through in my mind. Something she simply didn't deserve. And throughout this time, the other part of myself that was still there, the good within me, my soul was fighting for me to remember, that I'm not the mind, that I'm not every thought that goes into my head. One book that I kept going to process everything, it's a famous book called The Power of Now. One I was so skeptical of, but finally got to a point where I understood a lot of what Eckhart was talking about, and I didn't want to be there anymore. So I tried to get out of it, but then would slip and land right on my back to where I was, just making things worse for myself, knowing how bad I was, but not wanting to lose the girl I love. And there came a point where I just didn't want to be going through it anymore. I wanted a way out of that mental hell that I was in. And it truly felt like ending this life was the only way. It felt like it'd be so nice to end it now, to finally no longer be in this hell that I created for myself. And as I sat there thinking about the best way to say goodbye to this earth I was living on, I had my awakening. I see it now as simply knowing who I really am. For it's this simple. You are not your body. You are not your mind. And when the mind is calm, that place of no thought, when that moment is there, you are simply consciousness, the awareness that you're here. You're here now, fully present. In that moment you're in. I now knew that I'm not this body, and thankfully I'm not the mind. I'm the soul, consciousness, the energy within the body that is eternal. And I learned as much as I can. Even now I'm learning. I'll never stop learning about the soul, about the experiences of the soul, understanding that I'm here on earth now, but this is one life that I'm in now, incarnated here on earth until this body simply expires. like milk that no longer is drinkable. The body will no longer be livable. I now know my mission. My mission was always to serve Source, also known as God, the creator of all. For even if now, listener, you don't believe in God, you simply don't believe in yourself, because you are God. You are. Our creator of all is in everyone and everything, in me and you. In that person you see walking down the street who might not have much, even that person is God. All the way up to the most egoic. They are still God, but the mind has taken over and not letting them take the driver's seat again, a steering wheel. I'm simply here to serve every single one of you listening. I know everyone has their own struggles and traumas and life, but I'm here to tell you, I don't think you should be going through it alone. If you want to, it's okay. If you don't think you need the help, it's your decision. This universe operates on free will. You make that choice every day to live through your higher self, your soul, through your lower self, your mind. Your higher self is the one that knows that nothing truly separates you from those around you. But the lower self thinks otherwise, thinks everyone else is separate from you. And I want to end this first episode here and ask you, who are you? Beyond the identities and labels that you think you are, in that moment where you have no thought and are simply being. Because you are this beautiful being of energy, that divinity that is within all of us. That's who you are. I love you. I thank you for taking the time to listen. And I'll see you on the next episode.